It's been a while. Thank you for waiting for more uploads if you have been. I appreciate your patience. I wanted to briefly talk about a topic I've been deliberating on for some time that I'm finally deciding to make into a video. I've noticed for a while a certain tendency of mine that I wanted to talk about, but I wasn't quite sure how to word it. And that tendency is feeling the need for permission to make certain decisions with my art, and then waiting to try out my ideas until I sort of indirectly get permission to make these decisions from another artist. So, in other words, I may feel hesitant to make a bold decision in my art until I see someone else do it, which then sort of gives me a feeling of approval to make that decision. I'm not sure if that's the best way to word it, so I'll explain in more detail what this means in a moment. I've never talked to any other artists about this, so I'm not sure if this is just a me problem or if there are other people that relate to this and need to hear it, but I just wanted to address it in a video anyway. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about my experience with what I mean by waiting for permission. I've realized that my mind feels that I shouldn't make bold decisions with my art, and that I should take the safe route and do what is conventionally accepted, or stick within my comfort zone of expression, because maybe if I step outside of it, I or somebody else won't like the result. I might have an interesting idea on how I want to explore my style, or I might have the urge to experiment with an aspect of a painting, but unfortunately, I tend to dismiss these creative inklings in favor of what I'm used to. And it's only until I'm viewing the art of those I feel are more skilled or creative than I am, do I notice that sometimes they may do the very thing I've been wanting to do with my art for the longest time, except they have the confidence to own their decisions, and people love it and recognize it as that artist's style. An example of this happening with me was that for the longest time I felt that my art was very rigid and I focused too much on rendering every detail. And for me personally, I sort of longed to feel looseness in my art. And it wasn't until I saw other artists with a loose, carefree style that I felt like I was granted permission to be loose and carefree myself, and that it's okay to not render every detail. I know this is bound to happen for a lot of personal artistic discoveries, and I don't think there's anything wrong with seeing someone else do something and deciding to do it yourself, but this happening constantly with me started to make me wonder about why I don't just do the things instead of waiting around for proof that it's okay to do those things. The part I began to have a problem with is the waiting aspect of this, or withholding my ideas until I see proof somewhere else of them being worth exploring. I see this situation reveal itself in a few different forms in art. As I mentioned already, this shows up for me when deliberating on art style or other stylistic decisions of art making, but I also see it applicable in other areas, such as rule breaking or art or career goals, so I'll expand on those other facets of this dilemma as well. I noticed that there are certain rules or principles in art that people limit themselves to in fear of doing something quote-unquote wrong, and these can be things like avoiding using pure black or white in a painting because you've heard somewhere not to, not using the airbrush, or worrying about making proportions perfect, and so on. A lot of times you need to rely on your own experience and intuition to make decisions with your art. It's better to just try things out instead of blindly following rules or not making choices that you feel might be deemed wrong. You will find out quickly enough whether or not your idea has merit after you've tried it yourself a few times. And I think the same thing could be said for your career goals. if those goals are related to art. When it comes to this, you might ask yourself, I don't know, should I start making art videos or posting art online? Should I start doing freelance? Should I try to work for a company or start my own projects? Or maybe you might have an idea on what you'd like to do with your art, but you don't know of an example of anyone doing this idea that you have successfully, so you decide that you shouldn't pursue it. In regards to all of these, I think if you care about an idea you have, whether it be a career direction, a potential art style, bending or breaking certain rules, or even making a small decision in a painting or drawing, it's best to act first and ask questions later, instead of talking ourselves out of what could potentially be a good idea. Whatever experience we gain from acting will eventually tell us whether or not we're making the right decisions. I think that all of these moments where we doubt whether or not something is worth doing can cause us to be stagnant and fearful of unwanted outcomes, which can ironically have the unintended effect of stifling your creativity and limiting your growth and opportunity to gain experience as an artist. Personally, what I believe is that as creative people, we should allow our ideas to exist in their own realm free of judgment and treat each idea as a valid proposal that is independent from anything we have or will observe in the world. I think that by imagining your ideas and creative endeavors as existing in their own realm with no need to gain approval from the outside world can help you focus on expressing the ideas you have without even giving them a chance to be shut down by some notion you hold about how they might be perceived or if they're worth pursuing. I do want to make a bit of a clarification though. By saying all of this, I don't mean to say that you should isolate yourself and essentially make art in a bubble with no outside influences, because this would mean that you shouldn't listen to anything others say or be influenced by anyone else, which is not what I believe. I think that seeking out feedback from people you trust can help you see things from perspectives you hadn't considered before, and I do recommend doing that. But what I instead want to stress that we let go of is the fear of judgment or failure that causes us to wait for outside confirmation to explore our ideas, and just explore them anyway. I know it's easier to follow the advice or do's and don'ts of others rather than just listening to yourself in fear of making mistakes, but you shouldn't need the permission of another artist to be able to make decisions in your own work. So, if you take anything away from this video, just remember that in art, you don't need permission to do anything. And all of this is really just a message to myself and maybe others who just happen to have the same tendency to withhold their ideas as me. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. If there's something that I said that stood out to you, or if I could have mentioned something else, please leave a comment so we can have some discussions about these things. Thanks for listening, if you did. I hope this was useful to someone, and if it was, I'd appreciate if you liked this video and maybe subscribed, because it really does help me and the channel, and it lets YouTube know that people want to see this content. And also, if you happen to know what topics you'd like to hear me talk about, feel free to comment below. And lastly, the link to my Discord server is in the description. I'd recommend joining if you want to talk to me and maybe help me grow a little community around this channel. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.